Hey, welcome to Stephen McGrath's Basscraft. So, great to be back chatting to you after a little break from releasing episodes. Been chipping away with a few things. I did a few YouTube videos. I did one about like chordal bass lines, and another one I reviewed a fuzz pedal that I really like, this Donner Fuzz Seeker. It was like 50 quid. I just bought it on a whim, and it turned out to be one of the nicest fuzz pedals I've ever played. And so I was just getting set up here today to do this little intro, and what arrived only the t-shirts, the podcast t-shirts, and so I spent all day wrapping them up and posting them, all that crack. And I'm delighted with them. They look awesome. They look even better in real life than they did in the mock-ups. Just a really good printing job done by Absurd Merch. So if you want to grab your own one, just go down to the link in the description, click through and order it. I've got plenty here and I want to post them out. So today's guest is Charlie McCarthy. He's a young bass player who's currently studying in BIMM, and as he said himself, he just plays in so many bands he can barely remember the names of them all. And great guy. I was kind of just putting out a call there a few months ago for who I should get on, Irish bass players that people should know, and his name popped up a few times, so I was delighted to get him on for a chat. And we chatted about loads of stuff, kind of production and the timbre of the bass and different basses you'll choose and all that kind of crack. And also he gave some really good insights into why someone would move to study in Dublin, because he's from Connemara himself, but he moved to Dublin to study in BIMM, and he just gave a good insight into what that experience is like for anyone who's thinking about doing it. So let's just jump in. And also he recorded some music for the podcast, so you'll hear that at the end. It's a song from one of his many bands. It's a piece they put together for college. It's called Nostradamus. No, not Nostradamus. That's the other guy. That's the doom and gloom apocalypse guy. It's Nosferatu. That's the one. Yeah. So let's just jump in, and as usual, like, subscribe, buy some merch. See you soon. Hey, I'm back. Actually, I forgot to mention just a little note for our non-Irish listeners. Near the end of the podcast, me and Charlie were talking about how he is a Gaeilgeoir, which means someone who speaks the Irish language, which is called Gaeilge. So we were just chatting about that, and I was actually saying I was terrible at Irish in school, which I thought I was, but I actually found my transcript from school recently and I got an A in Pass Irish, but I can't speak any Irish. And that's a conversation for a different podcast, or maybe even this one on another day, about the Irish language. So if you need to learn a bit more about that, look it up or send me a message, I can tell you about it. But just to give you a context, that's what we were talking about. Charlie's from there's little sections of Ireland where people still speak the language on a daily basis, and they're called Gaeltachts. So he's from one of them, and they're particularly beautiful parts of Ireland. So if you ever come over, definitely go to a Gaeltacht and check it out. So that's it, lads. See you soon.
They have a whole collection. They had a sale on a while back, so I got the whole collection, and Jesus Christ, some of the sounds out of that, like between that and the Logic plugins, like I actually don't need anything else. Like,
what kind of plugins are they? Like keyboard sounds, or? It's
all so it's like processing plugins. So they have some really nice like kind of compression chain stuff for drums, and then really nice delays and reverbs. There's one yoke called the Crystallizer in there as well, which like I don't even know how it works. Like,
it sounds good when you put it on stuff. It makes it sound crystally.
It crystallizes. It sounds like it takes a delayed signal and like pitches it up octaves or whatever. But it doesn't sound like an octave reverb or delay or anything. It sounds like crystals. Like it's nuts.
Deadly. They named it well anyway. They got it spot on.
100%. Like, yeah.
Are you doing a lot of that since all the COVID shit? Have you beat making more than bass
since
playing?
August.
Like?
Yeah, it's weird. I've kind of put the bass down a bit more recently. But like I suppose I'm still working away on it, obviously, because of college, and like I'm playing bass with a load of bands and stuff. So I'm still busy with it. But it's like I've been taking a much deeper interest in like producing and trying to get things to sound like good, as opposed to just leaving it to somebody else.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting better at that, recording my own takes.
Yeah.
Like I find a lot of it's in the EQ, like if you can understand what the different bits of frequencies, how they affect, well, depending what sound, like when I want a good pick tone, I like boost the mids like right up and scoop out everything else, because that's the sound I want.
That's where it is, where it lives. But it's great though, because I feel like, you know, you just kind of get a better understanding of your own sound. Like, you learn things about yourself through recording yourself that you never would have before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes bad things, like you look down, you look at the
time, like
you look at the transient and see, I keep coming in early on on all the first beat.
Yeah, it's that's actually great as well. To like, I've been doing that a lot to try to get feel a bit tighter, because I tend to rush over bar lines a little bit. So I'm trying to just pull it back by like watching the transients as I go and then listening back.
Yeah, that is good.
It's hell, but like it's worth doing. Like, yeah,
it's deadly in Logic. You can make tempo tracks and, you know, slow it down and have it changing as you're practicing. That's some challenge. Like, even if you have all the chops in the world, like, that's still going to be a challenge for you. Like,
yeah. I think there was a great lesson we got from one of our lecturers actually back at the start of college. Robbie Malone. He played with Lear and plays with the Frames. I think he plays with David Gray at the moment. But I remember him, like, he put up basically like 4 bars and then divided the bars in terms of eighth notes and just marked certain eighth notes and let a metronome go and made everybody play that. There were loads of people just like slapping away and doing mad choppy stuff, but nobody apart from him was able to actually just sit there and nail like whatever beats he was pointed to, and just like with, I think it was just C he was playing. That was it. Yeah. Like,
just on the groove grid, as they call it, the little bumps on the grid, and hit the ones that you want to hit.
Yeah. It's way harder. It's hard, like.
No, it is. It's way harder than you think. What year are you now in BIMM?
Final year.
Alright,
I'm wrapping up now.
How's it been for you?
I've really enjoyed it, in all fairness. Like, I mean, start to finish, it's kind of been fantastic in terms of meeting people and like being able to kind of work on music full time and get to know like loads of people who are obviously like looking to make a career out of it as well. Like, but it's just been tricky as well. Since like halfway through third year now, last year, we haven't been on campus, like, which is, I don't know, it kind of takes a lot out of it, because it is a course that definitely benefits from being in person. Like, I mean, most do, but in particular, like,
it's a performance course, like, mainly, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's what a big part of it is. I actually just submitted my solo performance exam, which I recorded all from home.
What did you do for the solo performance?
I did What's the Use by Mac Miller. I was doing that. Thundercat bass.
Actually, funny enough, I'm doing a video for my channel soon about bass chords, and I was just I playing what's it called, them changes, and
it's fantastic.
Trying to get the sounds and all that on it.
Yeah, I found a great little trick for that. Actually, is the I have a C4, you know, the Source Audio synth pedals. I have a C4, but there's one patch I have modelled after. It's like a Pigtronics envelope phaser or something like that. I think that's what he actually uses for his tone, Thundercat, because it's like an auto filter, but it sounds kind of like wobbly as well. Like, so
I was finding it hard to get. Like, filter. Well, he has a 6-string, so that he's getting some of the low notes from that. Like,
6 strings worth like $9,500 too. So yeah,
I know. I'm only trying to show people what he's doing with the chord, so I don't have to get it perfect, you know.
Yeah.
But you're in 4th year, so, and what lecturers are in the college? I think the guy who plays with Paul Moore, is that, I know
Paul Moore is the head of bass. Yeah, he's running the course. He's fantastic. We've Keith Farrell as well. Another great session bass. I think he played with Mundy for a few years. Or he played on Galway Girl anyways, I'm pretty sure. We have Adam Taylor as well, is another great bassist. He plays in like a quartet with Jay Kern, you know, the guitarist who plays for Niall Horan. Who else do we have? I think that's kind of the main people we have. Then we have like the likes like Gav Fox as well, who played with Turn, that band, who were before my time. I think they were like touring and stuff in the 90s.
Yeah, they were before my time. I have heard of them already, but never saw them play. Like,
yeah. I think they play Whelan's every year, actually.
Oh yeah,
as far as I know, every Christmas. Yeah,
I played Whelan's every week for about 5 months there at one stage. When we got Big Kev, he's like one of the main barmen there. He saw us playing in a pub in Cork, and he got us the residency playing a Whelan's every week for about Happy 6
days.
months. Like, that was great kind of break for us. We did a lot of networking through that, like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we found that as well with one of the bands I'm in, Nerves, kind of like my main band. We, through doing support gigs and stuff, we ended up gigging in Whelan's, like, I think over the course of 4 months, it was like every other week. It just support slots, like. Yeah,
the main room is class. It has such a awesome sound, like.
Yeah, it's something else.
And how has your bass playing evolved since you left Galway? Like, when you were, if you were probably pretty young when you went to college first, like.
Yeah, no, I was only 18, but I think like I really underestimated when I started playing like the importance of like, I suppose it took a bit of, like going through college a bit as well to realize like that it's not all about chops, and there's like way more to be said for being able to just play simple and listen to what else is going on, like because that's very much I think where my head was at for, I mean my head is still there honestly.
You're a
but
pretty
like,
flashy player, like I follow you on Instagram, and to hear you say it's not all about chops, at least you figured that out. But
yeah,
you do have serious chops though. You're definitely into that as well, like.
Yeah. It's something I really enjoy, but at the same time it's like, you know, like it doesn't really, I feel like, you know, no music's paying the bills for me at the moment, but if something does pay the bills, it's not going to be my chops. Like,
no, definitely not.
yeah. Like nobody needs like mad fast slapping most of the time. It's just like laying down a groove and supporting what's there. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that's changed honestly throughout college, which I'm really glad for as well. It's like Robbie in particular, who I was talking about earlier. He's like the one who kind of nailed that home. A really big way. And
were you surprised how hard you found playing that more simpler stuff when you were probably, you know, we're all like that when we're 18. We learn how to play really fast and we assume all the stuff that we skipped is easy.
Yeah. No, it was I think it was in like second or third year where I did a class with Robbie where it was all about studio recording, and laying down like recording bass and like a studio environment sort of thing. But the biggest like change I noticed was sitting there and listening back to whatever takes I put down with him, and then looking at like the transients and listening to like the feel of it. That's where it like really, really got pointed out to me. Was like, yeah, okay, I can like do the fast stuff, but can I do like slow stuff and like make a song work better just off playing bass? Like, because you know, so often it's a weird one because like I think as a bass player you're kind of fighting the whole time with like the spotlight. Sometimes you
I like bad, to like, jump around as well on stage.
Oh, same, yeah, 100%. But like, you know, it doesn't always work, especially with like covers gigs and that sort of crack. So it's like,
yeah, you might look a bit ridiculous jumping around while they're doing Wagon Wheel or some rendition.
Oh,
nah, you probably won't play that.
Yeah.
Were you always into that kind of slap and fast stuff before you went to college? Was that kind of what you were? Was it Primus and those kind of bands you were into?
Yeah, like I learned a lot of Primus kind of. I think everybody who kind of gets more into slap like stumbles across a Rob Scallon video and then is like, right, I'm gonna give Primus a shot. Like, but I kind of I was really like mad into that Muse and like the Chili Peppers before college and stuff, and then in college I kind of got introduced to bands like Chon or Polyphia and stuff like that. I wanted to get more into like sort of math rock sort of stuff, and then like kind of noise rock stuff as well. So bands like, you know, Girl Band from Dublin.
Yeah, I know that I've heard of them, but you were saying when I was emailing you before this that you're really into his bass style, but I wouldn't know much about his bass style. If you could kind of explain what you mean by that, like.
So it's like, I mean, the next time you get the chance to see them live, go and take a look because it'll blow your mind. The way they play is like, it's like kind of no wave, that genre that popped up in New York in the 70s, maybe. Might be wrong in saying that, but it's part of that genre basically. And the idea is that like, at the start of that genre, like the people who were playing the instruments couldn't actually play the instruments, so they were using them in completely unconventional ways. Like nobody was playing chords or anything. So what they essentially do in girl band is like they use pedals and stuff to make like textures more than they would actual like harmony or like functional harmony in any way. So with like Dan, his bass playing style, like so much of it is just based on like repetition and like textures, but it kind of hits a stage where the bass doesn't even really sound like a bass anymore. It's like this, it starts turning into a pad or just like a low rumble. Like they covered a really good example of them using that to like great effect, I think, is they covered a song by Blauen, who's a DJ, called Why They Hide Their Bodies Under My Garage. But like if you listen back to them one for one, they managed to recreate like the timbre and the feel of a techno track, but with a band. Like it's nuts. Like
I'd say that takes a lot of guitar pedals to do that.
If you see Alan Duggan, the guitarist, like on stage, oftentimes he's standing with both feet on the board, like moving two expression pedals at once. Like,
they're big in Dublin, though, aren't they? Is that like a popular scene in Dublin? People doing that type of music?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of part of the scene that I'm in as well. With some of the music that I play, is like the kind of more off the whole post-punk thing that's happening at the moment with like Fontaines and the Murder Capital and all them, there's the whole kind of no wave side of things as well, or like more noise orientated stuff with bands like Girl Band. Or
you play Mustang, which would be kind of the kind of thing you'd play if you were in like Fontaines or one of those kind of bands.
yeah.
So why the Mustang? Like, why did you go for that?
Like, honestly, it was like the idea of having a short scale. Just I knew my life was going to be easier if I got a short scale, and then past that, it was like, I know there's only so much I can do in terms of tone, especially for a lot of the like maybe math rock or like more progressive stuff. Because ideally, you know, you'd have like a Dingwall or something like that. But I just honestly can't get past the way a Dingwall looks. Like, it just looks so.
Do they all come in those toxic yellow colours, or do they have more neutral ones?
I don't know, but even at that, it's just the shape, and I can't get past it. Like,
I've never played one. I've never played a fan fret bass either. I don't know what the story is with them.
Yeah, it scares me a little bit, but maybe that's a good thing. Who knows? Like,
yeah, well, I'm the short scales are just it's only in the last year or two that they've kind of exploded in popularity, and you can see now that the companies are catching up, because this year and last year, all the big companies started releasing short scales, but 2 or 3 years ago there was only like a handful of them available, like, to choose from.
Yeah, no, actually, I think my first bass, which I'm pretty sure I have here, is it's this little short scale area that I got off my dad. Cool. Actually,
5-string as well. Is it?
Oh, it's 4-string.
4-string
with yeah. Sorry, I'll just hold it up. To
I can
there.
see it now. Yeah.
But it's like 24 frets on a short scale, meaning that the body is like, I mean, absolutely tiny.
Yeah, it's
mostly neck. Like, yeah, it looks ridiculous. Like,
is it? It looks like a really nice bass, actually.
Yeah, I got it done up a bit. I put in a nice like DiMarzio pickup and some flat wounds. So, because again, another thing Robbie was saying to me was like, everybody should just have a P bass with flats. So
yeah,
I have a P bass with flats now.
You kind of have to. Like, it's like guitarists have to have a Strat, a Les Paul, and Telecaster. A bass player needs to have a P bass. And the other two, I don't know, I haven't decided what basses I'd have to throw away. Like,
it just is a P bass, it's fine. Like,
yeah, the PJ configuration is grand, but even on my one to have the Aerodyne, I don't use the jazz pickup at all. I just have it always.
I love the jazz pickup, in all fairness.
Yeah, it doesn't work in my one, so that's probably why I don't use it.
Okay, that's probably part of it.
It broke, and I didn't ever get it fixed, but I will at some stage.
Yeah, and I love having that pickup configuration, because like I use I've actually used the same pickups. I have the Mustang here. I've used the same pickups in this since I was like probably 17 maybe. I have the Seymour Duncan quarter pounders in it.
Oh yeah, they're class.
Just because like
the pickup selector is deadly as well. That's a cool little feature.
Yeah, it's a bit of a game changer, because like I was used to use a P bass with those same pickups in it, and it'd be hell to try to change pickup configuration by rolling volume knobs. So just having like a selector that I can actually just flick like a guitarist and just like smack it and keep playing is nuts. Like,
can you do the kill switch thing as well with it? Is there 2 volume knobs on the?
There isn't actually. No.
I have a kill switch on mine already.
Yeah.
On my Aerodyne, it's the volume knob is a kill switch as well. It's actually if you've loads of gain turned on and you're doing some crazy thing in a song, you can use it. But as a bass player, the kill switch isn't the most practical.
Yeah,
thing
the most useful. I might have to get one though. It sounds like a good laugh. So like
it actually is a good laugh. I just use it at the end of songs. You know, when you're a big crescendo of effects and you just start pressing it. I don't know. I do it once a night, and I get my use out of it.
Yeah.
That explains why
same
I have a kill
like
switch.
a guitarist with an Ebo. It's just used for the outro of like the very last 30 seconds of a song. Like,
yeah, I've seen Steve Lawson uses the Ebo on the bass a good bit, and do you know, you're wide to him, English bass player.
I haven't heard of him. No,
he does solo albums on the bass. He has about 30 or 40 of them on Bandcamp. That's what he does. Like,
right, okay.
He's really good at the Ebo and just generally any kind of bass effects and ambient stuff. Like, he's the man for that. And are you getting into like you were saying you're getting into kind of chordal stuff as well on the bass more lately?
Yeah, like for those for a lot of that kind of more noise based stuff in that band that I play with, Nerves, the way we kind of approach is that the guitarist does more like kind of shoegaze sort of stuff. So like My Bloody Valentine or those sort of bands where it's like big huge chords with layers and layers of like reverb and stuff, but because it's just me, him and a drummer, I often find like, you know, if you play bass in a really kind of normal like root note sort of way, it doesn't really fill out the sound enough. I feel like melodically and like in terms of harmony and just timbre as well, like it's just not really big enough. So like I've been experimenting a lot more with like chord voicings on bass, and kind of trying to do chord melodies on bass as well, to varying degrees of success, of course. But like,
would you not go for an extra, like a 5-string or a 6-string for that sound?
Yeah,
like?
I've been thinking about getting a 5-string, and again a 6 would actually just make my life even easier, but also much harder because I'd have to learn how to play 6-string.
Yeah, well, you probably wouldn't use the B very much. You're better off just getting a 5-string with a high C string.
We had the high C. Yeah, a friend of mine actually used to have that configuration all the way through college, actually, and every time a lecturer picked his bass up, they would just be completely confused because it's just so wrong. Like,
yeah, it's great on bass the way all the strings are tuned to fourth. So
yeah.
Your scales and stuff don't change. Like on guitar, you have the B string is different.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it confuses you.
I've been finding that I'm using my dad's telly at the moment. Actually, I gotta pull it out.
You're pulling out if all these guitars. Like how many guitars are on the ground?
Yeah. No, I have a rack there, so it's all mounted in. But I've been using this telly a lot recently for like recording and trying to noodle as well, and just trying to understand how guitarists voice things, I suppose. But that keeps throwing me the high B and E, because every single scale shape is just like the only time, like when I think of a tritone in my head, I think of like that shape of like
the bass kind
up,
of thing,
up a string, up a fret. So the fact that like tritones on the high G and B on a guitar actually sound good, just like it looks so wrong to me when I'm playing that like everything in me screams no when my hand goes to do it. Like,
so you haven't played guitar at all? You started on bass straight away, did you?
I did, yeah. I've actually only really started playing guitar now in the past, maybe, since Christmas maybe, that I've actually been giving it a proper go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm no guitarist though. Like I can play maybe 5 or 6 chords and that's it.
Well, for like, if you ever watch on YouTube some of the big beat makers, I was watching one. He has about 500,000 views, like, and my God, he was no great shakes on the guitar. Like he was barely getting them notes out. But when he finished making the beat, it sounded unbelievable. So
that's it.
They're using it in a different way. Like they're not trying to be like amazing guitar players. They just want to be able to play enough guitar to put it into their computer to write tracks. Like,
yeah. I think that's kind of what I'm giving a hand at as well. Is just like, it's also just good to know, like, I suppose what it's like to play the other instruments that you're playing with all the time, like, and understanding what they're doing, because then you can kind of, I don't know, it just kind of broadens the way you conceptualize things when you're playing, if that makes sense.
And your dad is a musician as well, is he?
He is, yeah. He's a guitarist. He plays a lot of blues and kind of country stuff. He's a load of really nice guitars. I think his nicest is probably, he has a 66 Mustang, I think, or 68 Mustang.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's like, it's tiny. This yoke is like the size of the neck is like a pinky finger. Like it's this tiny little yoke. Like,
yeah, the vintage stuff is weird. Like sometimes they can be horrible. Like, you know, they've been wherever they come from. You know, it depends how well they were looked after and what kind of room they were kept in. Like people are a bit obsessed with the age of a guitar. They assume it's brilliant, but I have no interest in really getting into the vintage bass thing. I'm happy with new stuff.
Yeah, same, honestly. Also, just the terror of like the idea of bringing a vintage P bass out anywhere scares the shit out of me. Like, it's too much money to gamble on. Like.
Yeah, no way. And is that how you got started on the bass? Because your dad played music, or was it some other friends in school? Like,
it was kind of like, they were always there when I was growing up, and there was one occasion I can remember where my dad tried to teach me and my brother. I think I might have been 8 or 9 at the time. He tried to teach us to play guitar and got absolutely nowhere. We were completely disinterested. Like, but it was always just like that black bass was always lying around. So I just picked it up one day and got him to show me, like, I think he showed me a 12-bar blues, and then I kind of just went from there pretty much. And then in like secondary school I got into like Chili Peppers. That was the big one for me at the time. And I started playing with like other guys in my class, and then kind of got into it more and more, and then started playing with more people, and just pretty much progressed from there. Like,
cool.
I was hooked.
Same here. I was Chili Pepper. I'm reading Flea's biography at the moment. It's really good.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't actually pick up the bass till well into his teens. Like, he's playing a bit of trumpet like at the moment in the book, but
yeah,
I thought he would have been playing bass from a super young age because, you know, he's such a legend on the bass. But he was late enough in his teens, like when he picked it up. But I was obsessed with him as well. Just love his playing and everything he's done. Like, it's
weird because I've distanced myself from it a lot actually over the past few years, of just like, maybe that's just part of college and like being in the music college is that nobody wants to say they like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but like, you know, it is how I learned how to play so much of what I do, like, and it's the basis of, I mean, like him or not, like, Flea is one of the most influential bass players ever, arguably.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I'm old enough to remember when By the Way came out, like, and on that album he stopped slapping. There's a bit of slap, but he played with a pick for most of the album. And
right, okay.
So it was like I was around when he was like evolving his style of bass, like, so that kind of made me play a bit of pick bass, because like, oh, Flea is doing that now I'll play some pick bass. But probably these days you'd probably just listen to all his slap stuff and fancy stuff. You might listen to some of that later Chili's material, like.
I love his pick playing as well, though, I have to say. I mean, I think one of my favourite Chili's tunes is probably like Parallel Universe. I think that's off Californication.
We're around that era anyway.
But it's all just like, the whole track is just like pick, bass and guitar, all like pan muted stuff, but it just kind of, it really works. Like, I think that's one that I learned actually as well at the start of like getting into pick bass.
Yeah, I'm getting into that at the moment. Well, I've been doing it all lockdown, playing pick bass. It's class, like, but it's a completely different beast, like. But
it is, yeah.
Once you start really getting into it, it's so much fun, because there's no way you could play those kind of bass lines with your fingers just to get the kind of the sounds and the rhythms, like.
I mean, like, I think the closest you can get is maybe using your index finger like that and using it as a pick, but like, you're just not going to get that attack with your fingers, like, unless you have a fingernail the size of, I don't know, a toe, like.
Or the double thumbing. Some people are quite good at getting a pick kind of sound. I do a bit of that double thumbing, but I definitely need to go in the shed and do a lot more of it to be confident.
It's the consistency of it that I find really hard, of like, it's just like trying to keep it consistent the way like somebody like Marcus Miller would, where it's just like, it just sounds, you hear it and it sounds like it's as easy for him as like playing 16th notes with his fingers or something like that, is his double thumbing, which is terrifying to me, because like, I feel like I'm like clanking around the place from double thumbing, like.
What bass players are you into these days? Who would you be transcribing and just being inspired by?
I think a big one, like, for the past, since probably second year of college, is the bassist from Polyphia. Clay Gober is his name, but he's fantastic in terms of like his approach. His technique's really kind of coming back to pick playing, actually. His technique's really unique in that, because he does, like, you know, alternate picking on guitar where they have a actually, hang on,
is he like would he be big in the bass world? Because I'm aware of the band, but I'm more aware of, is it Tim Henson,
Tim Henson, the guitarist, like, steals the spotlight, because he's a complete innovator on the way he plays guitar and like chord melodies and stuff. But his bass playing, like, if you listen out for it, like, there's actually some really interesting stuff happening, because the way he plays is like this, where obviously the pick is doing the lower notes, but it's like slap bass but with a pick, and then he pops with all of this, but like
hybrid kind
like
of
this
picking,
it's hybrid picking, but like, it's really interesting, because the speed you can get the triplets at is nuts when you're using a pick, as opposed to having to like double thumb everything. So he's been a really big one at the moment, and for the past while. And then I've been trying to get into more of like, kind of with more feel orientated stuff, I suppose, like Thundercat's session work as opposed to his original stuff, because his original stuff is just balls to the wall, like
his fills nuts. Are like those 32-second note fills, but
I like,
it's more about his brilliant sense of pulse. Like, he just goes nuts and does those really fast runs, but because they're so in the pocket, they sound perfect. But when you try and emulate yourself, it's very hard to get them in the pocket the way he does, because they're like 32-second notes, like.
No, it's nuts. But like, a big one for me has been Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly, because I know Thundercat played bass on that, and I think it was him, Flying Lotus and Kamasi Washington, who are all three like modern kind of jazz players, I suppose, did all the, like, they worked on the production and the tracks for it. with Kendrick. So what you get is just this crazy like kind of blend of like hip hop and jazz. But a lot of the bass playing on that album is phenomenal. Like it's Thundercat at his best, in my opinion, because he's just grooving like and coming up with really, really tasty lines that like support the track. So that's been a really big one for me recently.
Cool. So there you're at the moment. That's kind of what you're in, and that's probably what a lot of people in. It's funny, people in music college do listen to different types of music to other bass players. It's all, and it's kind of, it changes. Like it depends on the era. Like I suppose that's what's popular these days. Is it that style of? It's always something jazzy or funk, but it depends.
That's par for the course of the music college. I feel, because it's just like it's a genre where everybody can like be a bit virtuosic, like. And
not Vulpec, are they not big at the moment with yourself?
I've had my time with Vulpec.
You're sick of them.
I've been there. Yeah, I'm kind of like, it's not even them, but it's like it was being in college when Vulpec really started to get big, which is what kind of like turned me off them, because I mean it would be all you would hear in like the common room or whatever. It was just people banging out Vulpec tunes, and it's like every assessment as well, because the way the BIMM does assessments is that like you have to do performance assessments, but the way they work is that anybody can come in and just sit down and watch, like so there's always a big group of people between whoever's up next for their audition and like just random people hanging out, like. But I spent like a lot of time in that room in Francis Street just kind of watching like people's assessments or whatever, but like the amount of Vulpec I saw covered like to a okay standard kind of turned me off the band. Like,
I know when you're in college you probably think you have to play like the most technical piece, but would you not probably just get a good mark if you just played like a normal simple bass line and just played it really well, instead of trying to play like the hardest bass line you can find?
Just because Joe Dart plays the way Joe Dart does not mean anybody else has to. Like. Yeah.
His signature bass is a bit controversial. It was like about two or three grand for like a bass with one knob on it.
Was it actually 2 or 3 grand?
It was well expensive. Sounds great when he's playing it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but he's Joe Dart, like.
Exactly. He plays in Ireland a good bit. He's in this band called the
Ollum, isn't it?
The Ollum,
yeah. I was listening to their album actually at the time it came out. There was one a couple of years back now. That tune, The Bell, is off it actually. But his bass playing on that's gorgeous.
Is it? Yeah, different, like very different to what he does in the other band.
He definitely, like, you can still hear that it's Joe Dart, but he sits back a lot more and kind of grooves it. I mean, not that he doesn't groove in Vulpec, because obviously he does, but like it's a lot less like shit hot funk playing and more kind of, I don't know, emotive playing, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Fleet did a bit of that with the guy from Tom York on his solo stuff. Or was it they had a band for a while? And it's funny, it's cool when you see a bass player who's famous for one thing, and when they get put into another situation, they still shine, but in a different kind of way. Like. Yeah.
I love seeing that as well, because like, actually that again happened was at like Thundercat, where his session work is like a different beast entirely to all his like solo stuff. But yeah, it's great when you get to see that, and I suppose it's a real testament to like somebody actually being an incredibly skilled musician when they know like what really suits a song. Like,
yeah, definitely. And do you think, where are you going to go after college? Do you want to be one of these session guys, or
that's a big question?
Because some of my guests have come on, and we were. I'm from the world of being in an original band like for the last 10 years, and that's what I do, and that's all I understand. So I found it kind of interesting when people were telling me that they don't want to be in one band. They want to be always kind of a gun for hire, and that's the way they like it. Which wouldn't be my mentality, but that's cool. Like that, people can go different ways. Like, do you want to get into the one band and go for making it, or like you don't know yet?
I want to try to do all of it, weirdly enough. Like,
well, the diary, you can only play so many weekends. So I play twice a weekend when gigs are around. Like.
Yeah, I know I'll have to compromise on stuff, but like I love all the original music that I'm part of, and I'm in a few bands. I'm in kind of 2 or 3. I always keep forgetting. It's like it's kind of 2 or 3.
Hope you remember
bands.
The names of the bands at least.
yeah. That's the easy part. Like, but it's like I love working on original stuff while also trying to balance like what I'm doing in terms of production at the moment and trying to build that up.
Is that going to be original releases at some stage? Your own
maybe
production?
I at the moment I very much feel very new to it. There's this like, and like the way I've kind of like really found that out is like there's a producer for Softboy Records. You know Kojak, that rapper from Dublin. So the label he's part of, one of the producers, his name's Gaptooth, runs these like beat battles it's actually on tonight, every Saturday I think, on Instagram Live. But people, like, he basically sends out a sample and then people turn it into a beat and send it in.
Cool. And does he like play it really and then kind of listen to it?
Yeah, it just plays all of them, and then like people pick out their favourite 3, and then the winners get like clout, I suppose, at the end.
Deadly.
But it's really cool. But like, that's what's really shown me like how far I have to go in like production.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels like I'm learning bass all over again.
Yeah, I just finished Andrew Wong's course in production. You know the guy on YouTube?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
The monthly thing. Finished there yesterday, and honestly, it was like my first week playing the bass or something in terms of my skills with music production. So it's a whole different ball game.
It is, yeah. It's tricky as well to like not lose faith, because it's like when you start learning, you can't hear the mistakes, but once you developed an ear to know what sounds bad, it makes it really hard to start learning something new, I think, because you still have that ear, like with, you know, having played bass for so long at this stage, like I've developed enough of an ear to know when my production sounds bad.
Yeah.
So
same.
it's like, it can be hard to improve from there, or rather like just keep at it, I suppose, sometimes, and not kind of lose your nerve.
Well, it's important if you want to be like a musical director in a band these days to be able to do that kind of music production things, because sometimes the musical director might have to do the backing tracks for the in-ears and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's definitely a good skill to have. Like,
yeah, well, that's it. Like, I mean, I feel like that's like music tech with like Logic and all that sort of stuff, and like knowing how DAWs work, I feel is probably going to become. And even, I mean, it's already a very big part of like session work, but it's probably going to only get bigger over time. Like,
you'd probably say you'd have to, if you're like a young bass player, would you say you'd get away with not understanding any of that stuff these days, or would you have?
I don't really think so, honestly. Like, not that I don't think you'd be dropped from a gig, because, you know, if you're there playing bass, you're there playing bass. Like, but you're definitely more desirable, I think, if you can look at a track and understand like what's going on in terms of production. Especially because, you know, so much of like, I suppose when I say like session work like this, what kind of springs to mind is like hip hop or like kind of pop stuff that's normally written all in DAWs and stuff and then brought to life by like a live band. Is like, so much of what goes on today in that kind of music is like the bass sounds are kind of at the forefront of everything. Like, like they're really, really saturate and fill out, and like being able to kind of like pick apart what makes a bass sound in a mix is like, I think it's probably one of the biggest parts of seeing of like performing that kind of music live in a really good way, is like being able to pick out what actually makes the bass sound good in that track.
Yeah, and nail the
being
tones.
able to like recreate it somehow. Yeah.
Have you done the synth bass much yet? Like, have you got into that?
I have a MIDI keyboard here, but honestly I haven't gotten into the like keyboard.
They don't play it like a keyboard though. I was watching your man Jamiroquai's synth player has a channel on YouTube since lockdown. He's building up a nice following, like, but watching him playing, it's nothing like playing a piano the way they play it, because they bounce off all the notes. Like, it's a very different kind of style. Like.
Yeah. I think I've been trying to get around it and put it off by I got like that Source Audio C4 pedal, because the way that thing's nuts. It basically, like, you plug it into your like computer or whatever, and they have their own software where it's basically just a full modular synthesizer, so you can do like pretty much anything in it and then save it to the pedal, and you have like 6 presets on the pedal. So I have like 808s and big like Moog basses and stuff there, but cool. I don't have to swap to a keyboard. I can actually just play it with my bass.
Is that expensive, that C4?
That was 250 quid. But
okay, Janik Gwizdal is into that pedal, is he? I think I've seen him put
he
it
could
on his
be,
board.
Actually, yeah, it's a great pedal. That's actually, I think, the last new pedal that I got, but I do not regret it at all.
Yeah, I have the HX Stomp in my cart there online.
Oh, okay, well then you're sorted.
I haven't pressed the trigger yet, but I will.
Really?
I know, I get it, because I find myself not really wanting to pull these days. I just couldn't be bothered taking out my pedal board, and because I come up with an idea.
I've had to leave mine set up. I won't use it otherwise.
Yeah, but like I find like what I like to do is I like to record a part and then in the computer put in all the different effects and change everything. So like if I have the HX Stomp, I can just do everything on the computer instead of going around my shed looking for the perfect fuzz and the perfect envelope filter or whatever.
Well, I found that as well, but like one of the handiest parts of getting better with like Logic or whatever is that like you don't really even need to plug in a pedal board.
No.
Unless, like, you know, I haven't found a fuzz that actually sounds like a big muff yet.
Well, they haven't. I don't think they've ever emulated fuzz or distortion digitally. But every other effect they can do, like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Which just makes it so much easier than, like, having to set up the pedals and, like, you know, then you can, like, with delays and reverbs and stuff, obviously you can just set it to the project tempo. There's no tap tempos or anything, so.
Yeah, it just does the job. Like.
It's handy.
Yeah,
it's handy.
That's
like.
the way forward.
It is, yeah.
So do you think you'd end up in a function band, or do you want to kind of stick, if you could make a living, stick with the original stuff, I suppose? And
that's what I'd very happily be doing. Like, I'll do the function stuff quite happily too. I was actually, like, I think the last time I was doing function stuff was, I had a big string of gigs, last Christmas, coming into 2020. That was like kind of my first taste of actual like session gigs at pubs and stuff like that.
And what kind of stuff were you doing? What, just chart music kind of?
Yeah, it was kind of just like classic rock covers and stuff like that, with some funk in there as well. It was with some guys who were all in New Park, the jazz school. But yeah, it was like I really enjoyed doing it more than I thought I was going to, because people always talk about like pub gigs and stuff and give out about it.
But that's like, only when you've done a few thousand of them. You're like,
yeah, exactly. Like, it was actually great crack in all fairness. Like, and the money's a lot better than original stuff. Like,
oh yeah, definitely. Better. But when you're just learning the covers for fun, like, you can enjoy them. But when you've done them, when you're doing that every night of the week for the whole year, like, then you get kind of sick of it. So
yeah, I suppose
you'll have to do a lot more of those function gigs before you get completely sick of it.
Before I'm allowed to hate it. Like,
well, luckily people love Stevie Wonder, so you'll usually get to play a few Stevie Wonder tunes in those function bands.
Well, then you're happy out. Like,
yeah, you're busy then. Sure, it'll come back. I've done a few of those gigs, but not a lot. Like, you know, I dip in a blues band a bit, and guy from Dublin, Hector Castilla, a Venezuelan guy, and that's fun. Cool. You know, doing that anytime when you're kind of out of your comfort zone, getting thrown into a new group like without a lot of practice is good fun. But I did a lot of prep though for the first gig. I'm not going to pretend like I just turned up and winged it. Like, I did do a good bit of prep.
Yeah. I found that as well with those gigs last year was like, I think the set list, so like the way they run those gigs that they were doing was they probably don't anymore, but they used to have a residency in Berlin on Dame Street, in that pub. But they had it was like a 45 song set list that they just pick out from. So I spent the entirety of St. Stephen's Day last Christmas for about 10 hours just sitting there learning tunes. Like,
was that good or bad, Stephen's Day?
I honestly can't remember, because it was just a blur of like trying to remember stuff. But I got to the stage where, like, you know, they'd call a tune, I'd sit there to be like, I can't remember from the name of the song how this goes, but as soon as I hear the first chord, I'll remember. Like,
exactly. Once you hear some kind of rhythm or sound of it, like, it comes back.
Yeah, just some signifier you're grand, like, but the name was not enough. Like,
well, sure, you just don't have that muscle exercise. You know, you were never really in cover bands, so
yeah.
I
suppose it's probably a skill as well of like just learning like a heap of tunes and actually being able to remember all of it. Like,
definitely. I mean, you learn them by ear. Like, you were used to doing that kind of stuff, transcribing things.
Yeah. That's how I learn it. Like, pretty much everything that I do is by ear. I try to look at charts more as well, like sheet music, just because it's not a skill that I've actually been working on enough. In all fairness, like, it's probably an area where I'm like lacking is actually being able to read, but I try to do it every so often just to remind myself that I need to do it more.
Well, it's the kind of thing you kind of keep practicing, because you just kind of lose it. I can do it, but I'm not really good at it. But I could definitely make some kind of chart, you know, in MuseScore when I need to. But I'm painfully slow at it. Like,
yeah. I don't find charts that tricky, but it is like, it's when you have like note based stuff, like chord charts, grand, sort of flying, like, but it's anything past that is a bit of a challenge. Like,
Yeah, I know, but sure, I gigs will be back later in the year. Like, so do you think the original bands you're in, will all four of them be like gigging at the same time, or how does it work being in four bands?
It's looking that way.
They're all raging to get going, and you're just like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to manage being in four.
Yeah. Like, we've been doing this for a year, lads. I just don't rush it. Like, no, I am actually dying to get back gigging. Like, it's, I think, probably an area of music that I never get bored with. Like, and I don't think I've had bad gigs, but with the exception of one gig in Mayo once, which I won't talk about.
Well, you started
all of them.
You started now,
I suppose. Yeah. It was like a charity gig it was like a local fundraiser or something, because the other two lads in the band are from Mayo, out in Foxford, like. But it was just this charity gig, and as we were setting up, we were standing on stage, and then a raffle started. And we were standing there just waiting to play for 25 minutes as they were calling out people's names. Then we started playing, and it's all like kind of noise rock, post-punk stuff, which obviously does not fly in Mayo. Like,
was it like someone's mum or something said, you'd be great, play a bit of music? Like,
it was, and it was just mostly like mums and grannies and stuff in the room. I was just like, painfully awkward, like.
Oh god, I've been there, definitely. When I was your age as well, yeah, same thing. It was all like, you're a musician, will you play at the function? Yeah. And you're like, you do not want to listen to us.
Sure. You don't want me playing, like.
No. They don't know till you start playing. They're like, oh. And even one time I was doing it, and we did, they wanted a waltz, like, it was like a after wedding thing, and we ended up somehow saying we'd do it, and we played Tommy the Cat but in a waltz, and we were,
oh my God.
We were like telling the people, we were telling the couples, this is, you can dance, you can have a waltz like to this, it's in 3/4, but because it didn't sound like Fields, Vattenroy or whatever a waltz they're used to hearing, they just they even hated that. Like, it was like, oh, we're lost here.
Yeah. It's a weird one as well, when you're like, you can feel everybody in the room kind of staring at you and going like, what the fuck is this? Like,
yeah, well, that might have been a night to pull out the cover set, you know.
Yeah.
It
probably would have been a good move. Like,
is there vocals in all your bands, or are some of them instrumental?
Yeah. There's one that I actually posted the video for. Yeah, so basically I wrote this song for like an exam, like a solo performance exam, but it's with another bassist and a drummer, and it's all kind of instrumental math rock sort of stuff. And that one might be, I don't know, we might keep writing more with that, because the first one actually turned out way better than we were expecting. So that'd be the only instrumental one, but the rest of it's all with vocals and stuff. So
good stuff. Sure. Yeah. Cheers, man. I'm trying to think. Do you want to cover anything else?
There's not really much I can think of, honestly. I think that's...
But your career is so young, you know. You're and you've kind of...
Well, that's it, yeah.
The COVID thing kind of knocked you should have been gigging through in Dublin on the scene, like, all the time, like.
Yeah. Well, like, at the same time, I've kind of come to a place where it's like, it's not just me who's like in this situation. I mean, everybody is. Yeah. It's not like I'm missing out on anything because nothing's happening.
Yeah, so I kind of feel that as well. Like, you don't have FOMO, because there's not, you're not missing out on anything. Everywhere's closed.
Yeah, literally, like, yeah.
So at least you're upskilling. You know, after this you'll be good at doing the production and all that side of things.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, yeah. Like, I think on that as well, of like realizing how early in like my career I suppose I am, is like, a really big one was actually coming to final year of college now and realizing where I'm at the moment, because like at the start and all the way through college I felt like, you know, it's like, oh, I need to be like at a professional level already. But I kind of realized, like, you know, I'm not going to be touching people like Paul Moore or whatever, or any of the like kind of greatest bassists that are like in the country, until I'm at their age, like, because they've had like decades of experience.
Like,
I'm like very new.
Think about it like this: if you're a sports athlete, you peak at 30. If you're a musician, your peak is the day you die will be the last day you get to practice. So
exactly, yeah.
So you can just always keep getting better.
Yeah,
but you're really young now. You're barely 21. 21. Like, so I'd kind of given up on playing music as a career by around 23. Like, I think. And then just the band did really well, so I decided keep it going. Once I started a college degree, like doing science, and I was like, sure, the music will just be a hobby. But then by the end of the degree, I was making enough money playing music that I could keep just playing music for a living. So it was kind of a roundabout way of ending up being a full-time musician.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like a big part of it as well these days is like, this is one thing that really picked up in college, is like the amount that like is in our hands these days, and not like the music industry, I suppose, and the way like you make money or make a career out of it or make a living out of it is like, it's really good, because like, you need to know a lot more than you used to, I suppose. But in terms of like your own publishing rights and like kind of all the business side of things, it's like way more open now than I think it ever has been. Like,
the gatekeeper, they're not the gatekeepers anymore. Like,
that's it.
That's true. And people often say it to me, like, because they say like, oh, you're a great blues rock band, you should have been around in the 70s, you'd be massive. But then I was thinking, well, we might have been one of the bands in the 70s who were really good but didn't get a break, like Budgie. Do you ever listen to Budgie? They're like this Welsh.
I haven't, no, I can't say
Metallica covered their tune for Garage Inc. and that got them a nice boost.
Oh, okay, right.
Brilliant band, like class riffs and everything. And they just never hit big. They never got the break from the record company. But it wasn't because they were a class band. So these days, if you're a class band and you work hard enough, you will get somewhere. And you're not waiting for a record company to allow you to record an album, because back then you wouldn't have been able to record an album with your own money. It wouldn't be possible. Like, and to get tours and record deals and all this stuff. But these days, you just
you can just do all that yourself. I mean, that's how, with Girl Band, Alan, the guitarist, he is like the manager for the band, like, and they're a band who are like, they play like Pitchfork festivals and stuff like that. I mean, they're kind of, for that scene, they're kind of as big as like they can really get, like. But he's still the manager for everything. Like, and I actually remember we heard this as well from Pliny, he's like an instrumental master prog rock guitarist. He did a masterclass in BIMM once, I think 2 years back, but he was talking about that, and Pliny is his own manager as well. So he was saying, like, while they were touring Europe once, I think their van broke down and then the hotel cancelled on them, so they just finished the show and they were walking around aimlessly, and he was just panicking on his phone looking for the next hotel or something.
Fix everything.
Exactly, yeah. But it's like, I mean, even up at that high level, like, you can still be your own manager. Like,
yeah, definitely. We do all our we do everything ourselves. We have tour bookers now, like, but everything else is like, we killed a deer on the way home from Spain like a few years ago, and it's not as if we could ring like Johnny, the tour manager, to say we're fucked here. We're pulling dead deer out of the van in the middle of France.
Jesus,
can you get us home? It was like, no, just look after ourselves. Like,
yeah. How did that work out in the end?
It was, well, we hit the deer anyway. The deer was asleep. We were playing a gig in it was in northern Spain, in Galicia, and we finished the gig, and Jev was saying, oh, if we drive for 13 hours, like, and don't sleep, we'll be able to go and we'll get home. Like, the plan was to go to bed in Galicia and get a different ferry.
Right, okay.
But he was like, oh, sure, we'll get home a day early. Why not? Like, so we decided to drive through the night, like, for like 13 hours without stopping. You could only stop to piss, like, once or twice. So I think because I was slightly awake, like, and then we were going along, and I don't know if you ever had like a near death experience. And the reason
I've been in the car with my dad before in similar scenarios.
The reason why the slow motion things happens is because your brain, like, your body puts more energy in, puts more resources into your brain, so like you're able to sense what's going on way more clearly, and that's why it seems like it's slow motion, because your body's like, okay, we're going to die, you better be able to sense what's going on better. So anyway, we just saw the deer's arse, like the deer asleep on the motorway, and boom, it just folded like an accordion, and it just guts came up everywhere, all up onto the van.
Christ.
And we didn't even...
Was it your van or was it a rental?
It was our van, yeah. It was totally...
Oh, okay, well then...
DIY band. Like, we was three of us in a transporter, and we just didn't even slow down. We just kept going, like, and we pulled into a filling station, and we just started cleaning the guts off the van, like, and there was blood, and you could smell the meat cooking, like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, the venison smelled great, like, it didn't.
Very fresh, like.
But we were very close to the border of France, so when we got to the I don't know if you've ever driven into France. There's armed security, like loads of them with guns. Like, and they were just laughing at us because they always laugh at us like these beardy guys, leprechauns or whatever. Like, and we just drove through and it was grand. And we had well, obviously then we realised we're not going to get our ferry. So, like you were saying, I was on the phone and I found us an Airbnb, the one we'd stayed on earlier in the tour. And we contacted them and they said, yeah, no bother. And we were like, we won't be here till like the morning or middle of the night. So we drove all the way through France and then finally got stopped by the police in Cherbourg. And they were like, they were like, what's going on? Like, there's blood on your van.
What's the crack with the car, lads? Like,
we told them what happened and they just thought it was hilarious. Like, they were just like, do you still have the deer? But we survived that. But like you said, there was no one to ring to get us out of trouble.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days after. It was mental. Like, it was my first car crash. So it wasn't even a crash. So we didn't even stop moving. So we were really lucky.
Yeah, that's crazy. Jesus.
So you have that ahead of you anyway.
Yeah, I suppose. Much to look forward to.
So do you think you'll stay in Dublin? Do you think you need to be in a big city like Dublin or Cork?
Honestly, I do. Like, in terms of just like who I rehearse with, because with a lot of the original stuff as well, like I think it benefits so much from being in a room together. Although I have been writing remotely over quarantine and stuff, it's like you lose so much when that happens. And especially with like if I want to do session work or like covers gigs, I think I need to be in Dublin first. Also, it's just like, I don't know, my life is in Dublin now. It's not really in Galway. Like,
are you in the Galway city or outside in the countryside?
We're in Connemara.
Oh, class. That's unreal though. You'll appreciate that when you're on away for long enough. You like.
No, I do. I appreciate it at the moment, like, and I'm here for the past month, but it's just like it's a big downside with Connemara. As much as I love it, like, I mean, a lot of the music that I'd play just doesn't fly. Like,
no.
At
Tina
all.
G Studios, would they not give like young bands a chance, like, to play a bit?
I think they had a show. Like, my dad actually used to work with them on stuff, and he used to work on Russ Maroon and stuff like that as well, because he works in TV. But I know they had a show called Immel, which is, I think it's the Irish for fringe or something like that. But they used to put on like a huge variety of acts.
Well, you're at the picnic when you go to the tent for the Irish speakers. They have loads of crazy like Ascoelga bands, like teenagers playing post rock and whatever you can think of. Like,
it's great though. It's a really good way of keeping the language alive. Like, because it's weird as well. Like, having moved to Dublin. Like, I was in Gael schools all the way up. Like,
so you're a Gaeilgeoir yourself, like.
Is Gaeilgeoir, man.
Don't start now, because I'll be. Languages were not my forte in school. Science and a bit of history, but not languages.
Yeah, but it's really weird moving to Dublin and like kind of realising how dead the language is everywhere outside of Connemara. Like,
oh, totally. Well, the nearest a Gaeilge place to me is what's the place near Dungarvan is the Ring. Yeah. But so
I can't even say I've been before.
Would you speak Oscoilga at home, like, to the parents and everything?
Oh no, my parents are dubs.
Oh,
like,
okay.
they're useless. Like, but it's funny. Like, you just bump into people and like on the prom or something like that in like the village. I just like say hello and just have a full conversation in Irish, and then catch myself halfway through and be like, oh, I'm just speaking in Irish again.
That's class.
Like, it's just, but it's just something like I completely forget about when I'm in Dublin as well, because like nobody actually speaks it.
I think the lads in Godalone are Gaeilgeoirs as well, are they?
They are, yeah.
So do you speak to them Oscoilga when you meet, or?
Actually, I must do that the next time I see them. Actually,
I always thought it'd be handy on tour, like, as like.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Imagine if there's some dodgy shit going on, like, and you want to be like speaking in secret.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the only advantage to speaking a dead language, is that like even within Ireland, people have no idea what you're saying when you're speaking it. Like,
yeah, I was on the Interrail years ago when I was about, I think I was 17 or something, and there was we were on the night train, and everyone said probably don't get the night trains, they're dodgy, but you save loads of money because you end up sleeping on the train, so you manage to get the train and save a day's accommodation, like.
Yeah, okay.
So it was me and about four of my friends. So there was one bed or one space left in our cabin. We were like, oh sure, no one would come in. Like, why would they want to be in our room? Like, but this dodgy guy just came in, and he just wouldn't leave. And he spoke English, and then we tried a bit of French because we were doing French in school. He spoke French. We spoke a bit of Spanish. No, so in the end we just started speaking really bad Irish to each other, and he didn't understand because all he wanted to do was rob us as soon as we fell asleep.
Yeah. You'll have that though.
Well, yeah, never. So, would you not use a bit of the Irish in your music, like, or is it you don't even think about?
Actually, yeah, no, I've been bringing that around recently. Is with Nerves, like we've been working on since quarantine during the summer. We've been working on an album actually, and kind of piecing it together. We're kind of in the process of demo and everything and refining it now, but we have about 12 tracks kind of pretty much finished. But on one of them, I'm thinking about doing some like spoken word Irish stuff, because I realise like it's kind of it's not something you hear too much.
No.
And it's a really interesting texture as well, because it's one that like jumps out to anybody who doesn't speak Irish. Like they will be clueless, but it's also like, I don't know, as a language, it's like very musical.
Did you ever play Metal Gear Solid 1 on PlayStation?
No, I haven't.
So when you're playing, like when I was young, like that was the game, the big game, like because it was probably the first ever cinematic game, like with a great story and good voice acting. But and Hideo Kojima is like this genius of game making.
Oh yeah, no, I'm clued in with all the MGS
but
stuff. And
they're
like,
singing in Oscuelga, like when the very first scene when Snake is swimming in, there's this woman singing Oscuelga. What's the name of the song? But I remember playing it, I was like, Jesus, they're speaking Oscuelga. She's singing in Irish. That's unbelievable. And when you go online, like, and obviously Metal Gear Solid is a huge
it's
international
massive, like,
game, and all the comments people are like, whatever this language is that she's singing, I don't know what it is, Chinese or something, it's absolutely haunting. But he just chose that, or someone advised him, said you should sing the song in Oscuelga, it will sound really lovely and haunting, like. So that's one of the times I heard like Irish in popular culture, but generally you don't hear it that much, like when it's got absolutely nothing to do with Ireland. Like that game is Japanese, like it's got and none of the characters are Irish, so I don't know how the connection came about, but you don't see it in popular culture that much, like. No,
you really don't. I mean, like, I think like there's the last time I saw it pop up and actually like go viral or whatever, like get some traction, was that video of the like monolingual Irish speaker. It's just like some lad in Kerry or something who only speaks Irish, and I, like, as a fluent speaker, was completely clueless as to what he was saying. Like,
was it a joke, like, that he doesn't speak any English?
No, he actually only speaks Irish.
How did that happen, like?
I don't know.
What era does he think he's living in?
Oh, he's an old man.
He's an old man. I thought it was a young fella.
Yeah. Oh, no, that'd be even funnier, like.
But sure, sometimes you hear.
Although we're not far off that, like back the way, it's the phrase for like going deeper into Connemara. It's like, so if you go back the way, you have people whose like first language is actually Irish, and then English is a second language, and they speak like with the thickest Irish accent. It's not even Irish anymore. It's like Gaeilge accent, like when they're speaking English. It's hilarious, like.
that's class. Well, do you not play trad at all, like, considering you're from such an Irish traditional place, like?
Not really, weirdly enough, because it's just like, I wish I'd actually gotten the chance to play more, and I probably will try to explore it more in the future as well, but the opportunity never really came up, because like there was one cover gig I did actually around the time I was doing those ones back like a year ago in January or whatever, that I was doing a cover gig with my friend Stephen in Sligo, but it was like we had brought in some trad stuff as well, and like kind of the like trad fusion arrangements are actually ridiculously good crack to play. Like I'd kind of underestimated, because like the kind of association in my head with trad a lot of the time is just like watching like men in their 60s who are hammered in the local pub just badly, like, making
you
a
way through
tunes,
Moving Hearts,
like,
you know, Owen O'Neill.
Well, that's it. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Class,
like, yeah. But that's like the really interesting side of it that I think I underestimated a lot when I was younger. So
yeah, I don't play it at all either, but I'd love to learn the uilleann pipes or something. Such a cool instrument.
Yeah.
But I even can't. I was asking Owen when I interviewed him, like, how do you play the bass in trad music? And it's kind of hard. It's a different kind of style, isn't it? Like, well,
it is. Yeah, like we were covering it once. We did a styles module in second year with Adam Taylor, one of my lecturers. But in that module, like, we were kind of covering a range of different styles, but he put in like trad fusion because he was like, Moving Hearts is a brilliant example of this genre, like. But it is like the way it like kind of counterpoints and carries some of the melodies and stuff, and it's a really, really fun way of playing bass. Like,
yeah, I'd like to get into it more. Like, it's definitely the kind of band you could do well in. Like, you could tour outside Ireland. People, they lap
sure,
that stuff
they have
up.
the whole,
like Germans especially.
Irish.
Brilliant!
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have more Pilsner or whatever. Great place to tour, by the way. Germany. The beer is unbelievable, and they give you plenty of it for free. I remember they were giving me free beer for breakfast. We stayed in this place, and it's a long story I'm not going to get into, but anyway, every morning I'll probably tell it in another time on the podcast, but every morning he was giving me lager for breakfast at 9 o'clock.
Jesus Christ.
Because I told him how much I thought it was delicious, like. And then this big massive what do they call them, beer stein of beer at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was kind of looking at me like he'd be insulted if I had a normal breakfast, so I just went along with it for 2 or 3 days.
Jesus.
Them were the days. But cheers for coming on, Charlie.
Thanks
I'm
for
interested in following
Great.
your stuff, like, well, and I'd like to, you should definitely release some of your own material, like.
Yeah, I'm kind of working away on it, so I will when I'm happy enough with it that I know it's like
when it's ready,
a good enough standard, I suppose. Yeah, that's it.
Well, usually you'll need someone to like tell you they're going to put you on a compilation or something, and then you're like, oh crap, I need.
Well, then you have a deadline. Yeah.
But cheer. I see you like going a lot of places because you're definitely a name that pops up like as of the people that are in BIMM at the moment. So I can see you being playing in whatever kind of session stuff happens in the Irish music world going forward. Like, so I'll definitely be seeing you on the stage at Electric Picnic, I'm sure. Like when it comes
hopefully
back.
Whenever, one day.
No, just keep at it and it'll happen.
Cheers.